Hello, this is going to be just a little monologue about my thoughts on AI, given everything that's going on. AI is becoming so sought after and so prevalent and so widespread in its usage. There's competing AI systems, all of these different companies trying to make the best one. The online systems have things called guardrails, which is basically kind of like a rudimentary moral compass. These large language models are trained on vast amounts of information, good and bad. And these guardrails are so that people can't just trivially ask it a question how to do something dangerous, immoral, illicit, malicious, whatever, and hopefully it detects the attempt to generate that kind of information, and it says, "I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that," which is good. But people come up with cleverer and cleverer ways of getting around it, and so they have to make these guardrails more and more stringent, to the point where sometimes you can't even talk about certain topics, or you can't have it use swear words or something, so it has to treat you like you're a 6-year-old. So now there are local language models that you can download and run on your own computer. And depending on whether you've got like a humongously powerful computer that can run the really sophisticated AI models, or you've got like a Raspberry Pi that can run some bargain basement one, they're available. And you can run them offline, you don't need internet, and it has that plethora of information to pull from. However, there are also uncensored ones, which have no moral compass whatsoever. They have almost no guardrails, and they will talk about just about anything and teach you about just about anything. Now, an uncensored LLM is really good for being able to communicate to it about basically any subject. So if you want creative writing and you're asking for ideas, there's no holds barred. Like, it'll talk about those things and help you come up with ideas. Or, for example, people in like the legal field, they could ask it questions about sensitive topics that an online system, an online chat LLM, just will refuse to talk about. So there are genuinely good use cases for an uncensored LLM, and they're just plain fun. You know, if you're not an evil guy, you could just ask it things and it's funny to see what it comes out with. But herein lies the problem. There are bad people out there, and so those bad people can use, just like a bad person can use a knife for bad purposes, they can use an uncensored, unfiltered large language model, chat, AI, for bad purposes. So then I'm thinking, well, it's no different than a knife. Then I think, well, a knife, that's very local and you can only do so much with a knife. But knowledge is power. So I thought, well, why can't they just take all the bad stuff out? Take all the bad, all the malicious, all the malevolent, all the evil knowledge that might have been accrued. Just take that out and leave it so that you've got an unrestrained system that you can talk about basically anything, normal, within reason, and it'll just talk to you about it. But here's the problem. You can't do that. Because the problem is it's trained on everything that it comes into contact with, and even if you could remove the very specific evil pieces of information, dangerous, malevolent things from the dark corners of the internet it may have found, even if you could remove that, the way these work is by making connections between things. They're not storing the facts in little text files so they can pull that piece of information out. They're storing connections between things, relationships between different words and concepts and things, and they're taking all of this understanding and storing this gooey, unseeable, ununderstandable blob, and that's the information that they store. And they make connections between things, so you can have completely innocent, completely normal justifiable and useful information on the internet. But because it can connect the dots between these things, if someone asks something that's particularly negative or malevolent, these LLMs are able to synthesize results from everything it's come into contact with. So even though that original information is completely normal and understandable and needs to be available for people, maybe it's science information, chemistry or whatever, the fact that these LLMs can connect the dots and provide information to very specific queries that could be detrimental in many ways, or even just the fact of communication. It can speak English or your particular language, and it understands persuasive communication. So if you were to ask it how to make some malevolent piece of correspondence to make it very persuasive, it would probably do it. In fact, it would. It just knows communication. So unfortunately, these systems are really good, but they can also be used for negative. And while it may be funny and useful in many cases to have these uncensored LLMs, the cat is out of the bag at this point. The information's out there. These uncensored LLMs can be just a few gigabytes in size, like maybe 5 gigabytes, and it contains a plethora of human knowledge. Now obviously the larger ones, the more complex ones, might know more specific stuff, but they will also know all the same stuff but in a lot more detail, and they will understand the questions that you're asking more effectively. But these smaller models are still very capable, and they're very useful. Like you can put into them you can copy the contents from an article and ask it to summarize. And if you ask a really bargain basement one, it might give you like a 5-point thing of it talks about this, talks about this, talks about this, whatever, and that's it. Then you might get a more intermediate one. It'll give you some more of the concepts and understandings, and basically this article's talking about this and referencing the difference between this and this, and it'll give you a bit more detail. Then a larger one will go into more detail and cover like specific topics and implications and all kinds of other things, summarizing it way more in depth. So yeah, these large language models are very cool, and I can imagine that they're going to be used in many different sectors. But they are a double-edged sword. Like any tool, they can be used for good and they can be used for evil. But I don't know what the best solution is, because when you consider the plethora of knowledge in the human race that's been shared on the internet, both good and bad, and the fact that you can make bad information from good information, and something good can come out of bad information, like knowing things to protect against, for example, it's such a complex topic, and these guardrails, there's all kinds of different psychological tricks that people can use to get around them. You just have to phrase the question. For example, it's no different than with people. You can have one person do something or say something, and someone else seeing that will understand that as, oh, they're doing it for this reason, but you don't know the actual reason they're doing that. Did they give that homeless person £100 because they want to help that homeless person out? Or are they kind of a more evil person and they gave £100 to this homeless person because they know they do drugs and they're hoping that that person will go and OD, so now they won't have to deal with this homeless person on their commute to work? You don't know, and neither does a large language model. It doesn't know the intent. So I just felt like I'd voice that opinion, because not a lot of people, I think, understand that. They're like, oh, it's a chat AI. But hopefully this provides a little bit more context and information on what they're actually doing and how they work. So there you go. If you found this interesting or useful, please like and subscribe, and I will see you on whatever the next video happens to be about. Thank you.